Okay, today I'm going to install Windows 8, specifically Windows 8 Release Preview. And specifically the version of ESXi 5.0 I'm using is Update 1, which you'll see right here. 623860 build or later you'll need. Okay, first step, we've got to get the ISO file up there. So yeah, we can use Browse Datastore and click Upload, but it'll be incredibly slow. You're better off using Veeam, Fast SCP, and it's free. And point to your ISO file first. Put the 32-bit, which is much smaller, in your clipboard. So right-click Copy. And then go into the ESXi host. Whoops, I was already on the ESXi host, sorry. It caches that. So here's my ESXi host. Here's the RAID array I want it, and I have an ISO folder. And then I just right-click and paste. Now, this is a whole lot quicker, 6 or 8 times faster than using regular upload. So that'll save you a lot of time. Now I've already uploaded the file previously. So now we can move back and set up the virtual machine. So now, if we go to Veeam, we've got a file name. That's actually a decent virtual machine name for me. So I'm going to go ahead and steal that. I put it in the clipboard. Right-click on my host. In my case, I have a resource group at the moment. Say New Virtual Machine. Typical is fine. Paste in the name. I like to put template at the end because this is going to become my template that I'll deploy from or clone from. Put it on the fast RAID array, and we want to pick Windows 8 32-bit. Leave the default networking alone. If we want, we can install tools later and put in the VMXnet 3 network. I like to thin provision everything. It doesn't slow down speed much, and it only uses up as much disk space as absolutely necessary. So I'll end up with 8 or 10 gig disk footprint on my RAID array, yet the C drive inside the VM will appear to be 750 gig in size. And the more data I throw in there, the more it'll just grow. Click Edit Virtual Machine. Continue. Now we need to point the datastore ISO file to be present at boot, so connect to power on, and now browse our way to that same RAID arrays ISO folder I showed you earlier, and we want to get that large file in there, or pointed to, excuse me. Okay, so now it's going to mount that file. It's ready to install. It only gave it 1 gig of RAM and 1 CPU. It's actually adequate for this. We could change it to 2 CPUs. I actually have about 7 other VMs running, so I'll leave it alone. Keeping this install as simple as possible. One other thing to note is if you're thinking about video and 3D acceleration or anything fancy there, you might want to turn that on. And I usually put this on automatic detection. So I've had good luck with those settings. There we go. So now my virtual machine is ready to boot. So if we open the console, reduce clutter here, and let's power this on. I'm recording 720p, so I'm just cutting off just a little bit off the bottom here. You're not missing anything but black. So let's see how long the install actually takes from beginning to end. Yeah, I started the stopwatch, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds in. That's all right. Okay, we can use our keyboard, we can use our mouse. Our mouse is a little jumpy because we don't have VMware Tools installed yet. Click Next. Click Install Now. Wait a little bit longer. Okay, we'll need the product key. Which I'm grabbing from the Microsoft site that I blogged about it in my article. Except, let's just get a quick recording of these pages. Suppose the page down button would have made more sense than the mouse. Sorry about that. And custom install is the only one that makes sense. There's nothing on this 750 gig hard drive. Just click next. And let her rip. Now let's slide this down a little bit. So you can see at the bottom it's saying where we are in the install process. We're 2 minutes in on the stopwatch. And what it's doing now is, we have a peek kind of under the hood. Let's go here. Let's go here. And let's do browse data store. So if we look at the data store here, we should be able to see, first of all, an alphabetical list of VMs. So if we type in Windows 8 with no space, that's the one. And it looks like it truncated the name there, but that's the folder it's putting the files in. And if we hit refresh, we'll see it growing. Oops. So we're at 2.3 gig. So yes, it's laying down gigs of data very quickly right now. Up to 3.5 gig. I'll leave the clock going in real time. No pauses. This is a solid state cached RAID 5, so on an LSI 9265 RAID controller. So I get pretty darn good performance with SSD-like speeds because reads and writes are all cached. Okay, there it goes. It's on its first reboot. I can't resist clicking refresh here to see how big we are. 5.6 and static because it's just rebooting. Let me just point out during this boot here, if you look, you'll see provision space. So it's pretending to Windows the C drive will look huge, like 750 gig, but the disk space actually used on the RAID array is 5.6 gig. We're at 4.5 minutes and counting. And another reboot later. I should point out that all of this should work fine, 64-bit version as well. I just heard from numerous sources, which I haven't really confirmed, that the 32-bit version runs better virtualized than the 64-bit. Again, if you have software that you really want to test in a 64-bit Windows environment, that's fine. This is really just me kicking the tires in the user interface. It doesn't really matter what version. In a month or two, I'll have another version to try anyway. So, all right. So let's do Windows 8 RP for release preview. 32-bit. 32-bit. Not the best name. Hit enter. Now express settings. I'm going to not use because I don't want automatic update setting. Turn those off. Keeping it simple. Next, next, next. I just turned off Windows updates. Now in my case, I don't want to do my Hotmail account in this particular one. I can always fix that later. Okay, let's see what size we're up to over here. 6 gig, roughly. We'll now find out how long a moment is. Apparently it's at least 10 seconds. Okay, just a heads up, I'm going to be installing VMware Tools. I'm going to make this machine auto login. I'm going to make it so the screensaver doesn't kick in, that kind of stuff. You saw a little bit of jumpy animation there, herky-jerky. We'll go ahead and take care of that. So now it's time for VMware Tools. And it's now gotten quite easy on this particular beta. Go to VM, Guest, Install, Tools. Now it takes a few seconds, and then the kind of autoplay kicks in. So let's see how this version of Windows handles it if Metro is showing full screen at the time. And there it is, a little notification up here. We just click on that, and we run setup. And it brings up the desktop appropriately. So that worked pretty nicely. Okay, at this point, we've already shown the install was done under, I don't know, 7 minutes. I'm going to get that distracting stopwatch out of the way. And we'll just proceed with installing tools. Typical is fine. Okay, after a reboot, I should be able to tweak the resolution to 720p to make it a little easier to watch this recording without any missing pixels at the top there. Here's what you missed on the top, very little. Okay, now that Windows is installed, we can, first thing I'd like to do before I forget is go to Edit Settings and just get rid of the CD. So we don't need those checkboxes on, and we can point those elsewhere so that it doesn't look for the RAID array. So that way the VM will no longer show that it's trying to find the ISO. Okay, it's now obviously booted. And we can hit Control-Alt-Insert to get an insert key. We can swipe the screen up and down. So there's multiple ways to send Control-Delete, or we can do it right there. Okay, so we're logging in for our very first time, where it actually asked us the password. And let's fix that. So let's hit the Windows key. Sorry, go to the desktop. All right, if we want to do auto run, we can bring up the charms. So let's fix the resolution before we get too far here. So Tools should show. So let's have all icons showing. VMware Tools shows. Next thing I like to fix is in VMware Tools. I like to do time sync right there. And then this clock, the install never bothered to ask me what time zone I'm in. So let's go ahead and fix that. Down arrow, enter for Eastern. Turn off internet time syncing because I don't want it to hit, I don't want to rely on a network for NTP. I just want VMware Tools to take care of my virtual machine. So that's my actual time Eastern right now. VMware Tools is set, but I'm getting a little herky-jerky mouse. So let's take a look at how the VMware Tools install went. So I'm running Computer Management, Device Manager, and having a look at what we got. So we have basic video, and storage would be LSI, virtual controller, okay. So yeah, the mouse as well. We got the VMware pointing device, but we got the old crummy video. So let's see how we do updating this. Automatic, I doubt is going to work. And this is a problem in the betas too. But let's see how I do if I manually browse my way to the device drivers, the VMware Tools folder. So let's have a look. Go into Program Files, VMware, Tools folder. It'll search all subfolders. Let me just make sure VMware Tools, help messages plugin, Win32. I'm going to point to the root of it and just let it search all subfolders of that directory. And let's see if it finds anything. It did not. All right, let's go a little more drastic and see how this does. So VMware doesn't show there either. We do have disk. Okay, so we still don't have tools. Okay. So we're going to have to live with that, but that's okay. We're going to go in over remote desktop anyway. So let's take care of that next. Remote desktop. We right-click on computer and say properties. The old-fashioned way is to go into remote desktop and just allow it. All right, so that's done. What else do I like to do? All right, we don't even have options there. So I want to do 720p and record what's going on here and show you around. So if we go into the virtual machine and we look at its network settings, oh dear, not really what I was expecting. Hang on, let's try that again. Wow, we really can't get something more than that? There we go. Right click did the trick. And here's our IP, 141. So now it's time to do this. So we're going to set up remote desktop. And we're going to allow sound. That'll be handy. I'm going to crank up the experience for full arrow. And display, we'll go with 720p. Okay, so that's about to connect. One other thing in the VM here, before we actually finish the connection, is automatic logon, which is hard to show you over remote desktop. So if we click here and just start typing netplwiz and hit enter, it starts this little dialog. Turn that off. I'm in a lab. I don't want to be nagged for a password on every reboot. So those are my basic tweaks. Install tools, set the time syncing properly, set auto login right, and finally, let's do screensaver off so the thing doesn't blank out the screen when you move away from the virtual machine. That really has no place in a virtual environment. There's no such thing as saving your monitor. Screensaver none. Okay, that's good. Change power settings, though, is what we want. Turn off display in 10 minutes. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So if you don't remember how to reboot, you want to get the charms up by putting them in the bottom right. Click the little gearbox and restart. We should see a nice fast restart, and we shouldn't see it nagging us for any password. And then we're ready to continue with the remote desktop connection we were going to do. At this point, also, I'll point out when you feel the virtual machine is done, you shut it down and you make a template out of it, basically a read-only copy, and then you deploy from templates. That's basically the last step in this process. Okay, so we have it up. DHCP should still have the same IP. I don't know if this board connection is going to actually work. Yeah, it looks like it is. No, then again, maybe not. Oh, okay, we're in. So now we should have a nice experience, including, I'm going to type the word sound. Nope, how about under settings? Sound, there we go. Excellent. So we have sound, we have good mouse responsiveness, and we want file extensions on like any IT professional does. They haven't changed that option, and details view. That's something I just do to all my builds. And we're there. We are done. If we look at properties here, we'll see we're using 7.34 gig is what it's saying. And if we look at my datastore browser, we'll see the underlying RAID is saying we're using 6 point something, plus there's a swap file or something that it's ignoring. Yeah, interesting how there is a difference there, though. Okay. So now that this thing's done, we want to make it a lot easier by using remote desktop full screen sessions. So if I wasn't recording on Camtasia, I'd probably run it full screen. Then moving your mouse to the bottom right, bottom left, upper right corner, any corner, the gestures are a lot more logical. So I got the charms to show up by moving the bottom right. I click on power, and notice when you're on a remote desktop, you still have that issue. I use a tool called Power Off to handle that. Or we can do this. Since we have tools installed, we can say power, shut down guest, and it immediately closed the remote desktop connection session. And soon you'll see that go away. Indeed, it's gone. Now we're back to our ESXi environment. We've got a VM we like. And then I'm not running vSphere right now, but you'd right click and then convert to template. And now you'd have a read-only copy of that VM ready to deploy or clone from to kick the tires. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and thank you for watching.